All right. Well, hey, we won't give it too much more time here. I will jump in. So, welcome everybody. This is being recorded. We always get that question. We'll get it again at some point as people jump in late. But yes, this is recorded. Yes, we will send it out. As many of you know, I'm Dr. Christopher Seitz. I'm an emergency physician, but currently the CEO and Chief Medical Officer for Guardian Medical Direction. We are very excited today to have Justin Roethlingshofer with us. Justin is the founder and really kind of the brains behind Own It Coaching. Uh, I met Justin actually last year at a cryotherapy conference, and his wealth of knowledge when it comes to just general health and wellness. I was even as I was thinking about how to introduce you, I was like, I'm gonna say he's like a wellness coach, but like you're so much more than that. I'm like, well, a health coach, but it's like that doesn't really encompass it either. I mean, really like you and your team's just generalized approach to wellness as a whole. You don't miss anything, right? Whether it's body, mind, spirit. I mean, you guys are really attacking wellness and health, especially for high functioning individuals like myself and the people who are jumping on this webinar who own their own businesses and companies. So again, excited to hear your background. I won't take up the time to do it. I want you to jump in and tell us who you are and what you do. But Justin, thanks for being here. If you guys have questions as Justin's presenting, please throw them in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat and probably interrupting here or there because I always have questions. But again, as you guys jump in, please ask your questions. Don't hesitate. And Justin, again, welcome.
Awesome. No, Chris, I appreciate this. I appreciate the time, and everybody on this call, welcome. The chat on the side is, I'm hoping, is going to be super active. I go to a non-denominational church down here in Miami, and it's all about the hallelujahs, the amens,
there you go.
the interaction. Like that's what I'm all about. So I'm hoping that because we're virtual, that's how I'm going to get the feedback. That's how I'm going to get the questions answered. So make sure you're paying attention. And I'd love to just take the next 30 seconds here. If you have a piece of paper around you, I want you to write everything that's on your mind, anything random. It could be that my elbow's hurting. It could be that my head hurts. It could be that I'm tired. It could be that, why am I listening to this guy at 2:00 Eastern on a Wednesday afternoon when I've got 99 things to do? I want you to write whatever it is on that paper that's in your mind so that we can clear our mind and we can be focused here for the hour. We can be intentional and be focused on what it is that we're doing. So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds of silence. Get all of that stuff out of your brain so that we can be focused, we can be intentional, and we can be purposeful and present.
I love it. I need a whole notebook though. So it's going to take me more than 30 seconds. No,
All right. So now that we got that out, now that we're focused, I'm excited because we're diving into the power of ownership today. How to redeem your health and run your body like your business. And after working with thousands of people in really making sure that this becomes something that's optimized and something that's optimal, we get into this space that's pretty unique. And I always start with this. This is my life. This is my family. I've got a beautiful wife we've been together 8 years, and we've got kids in the making. We're on a bunch of adoption lists, so we're just kind of waiting that out to see what God presents us with. But we've also got a 4-legged fur ball that keeps us pretty busy as well. So
I love it.
That's us, a little bit about us. We born and raised in Canada, live down now in Miami, and it's a blessing just to be able to do what we love. And so over the course of the last 15 years, I managed the health, wellness, and performance of the best athletes in the world, and really created a change in how we showed up, realizing that mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress, our body didn't know the difference. And so I took a very holistic approach to how I showed up in the National Hockey League and used data to help drive the decisions that we were making. And all of a sudden, as I changed this industry, as we showed up differently, we started to get different results. Well, as I started to do this for the athletes, I failed to do it for myself. And as I failed to do it for myself, I realized very quickly that I had a waning energy levels. I had waning fitness levels. I had waning sleep abilities. I was under chronic stress, and my stomach started to just give me massive levels of issues. And all of a sudden, I went to this doc up in New York City, and he did this procedure. And as I came out, he said, Justin, if we hadn't done this, you wouldn't have seen your 35th birthday. I had 7 polyps the size of my thumb, all precancerous, and
Wow.
7 ulcer and an ulcer the size of a quarter, also precancerous in my stomach. And it was at that moment that I realized that I had to start treating my life differently, managing the health and wellness of the best athletes in the world, but I failed to do it for myself. I needed to change. And so while during this time, I started to figure, okay, what habits and behaviors can I start to engage in that was a little bit different? And I went to this medical spa up in New York that was beautiful. It was tranquil. It was quiet. I was able to get into saunas, cold plunges, steam rooms, hot tubs, and just give myself this self-care time, this quiet time, get IV drips when I needed. My fitness level became a priority. And while I was there, I became really great friends with the owner. I started bringing a lot of our players there. And about a year and a half into our relationship, she passed away. And she passed away at the age of 54 from a heart attack. And she was suffering from the same issue that I had been suffering from. She was looking after her business. She was looking after everybody else. She was wanting to serve, but she wasn't looking after herself. And so my goal and my mission started to realize that this wasn't a human issue, or
You don't have to skip over the pic. Go back a slide. You don't have to skip over. There you go. You don't have to skip over that. Don't be that. We want to see that. That's fine.
So what I realized was this wasn't a athlete issue. It was a human issue. And as I started to focus on habits and behaviors, the outcomes started to actually happen. And so my question to everybody is, what is your definition of performance? I want you to write it in the chat. What is your definition of performance? Just write something into the chat. Write it out. Tell me a word. Tell me a phrase. If you hear the word performance, what does that mean to you? What would you define it as? Efficiency. Awesome, Shanika. Who else? What do we got? Energy, consistency, striving for excellence, being at my best. All great. Reaching goals. Awesome. The thing that I hear often, and these are all great words, there's one there that stands out that's a little bit different, and it's consistency. But if you look at efficiency, if you look at energy, if you look at striving for excellence, if you look at reaching goals, if you look at diligence, those are all great, but they're all outcomes. They're all outcomes. And that's what we've thought performance to be, as an outcome. But after working with thousands of people, the highest performing entrepreneurs, the highest performing business people, the highest performing elite athletes, what I've been able to come down to the component of is that the definition of performance is the capacity and the desire to intentionally and consistently behave at a level equal to your mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional potential. Now, I want to step back for a second. That's a lot of words there. Capacity and desire. Everybody has the desire to build the business. Everybody has the desire to build the platform. Everybody has the desire to build the influence. Everybody has the desire to build the family. Everybody has the desire to be fit, have the house, have the car. Everybody has the desire, but not everybody has the capacity. And that's where we fall off. And so the definition of performance that I come around to is I want to help you figure out how to build capacity to realize and blow past your potential mentally, physically, spiritually by creating intentional and consistent behaviors in your life that make the outcomes inevitable. It's just a matter of time before the outcome is here.
I'll throw this in too. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Justin, but for this group particularly, like, I love this because this is such a key thing. You hit on the nail on the head in the beginning when you said, as business owners, we want to do this. And a lot of people here, pretty much almost every people here is probably a business owner or something. But in healthcare in general, and because we're all probably healthcare business owners in some capacity in this group. In healthcare, we have such a culture of not taking care of ourselves, which you already pointed out, right? Even more so, I think sometimes it's like this. It's like a badge of honor to self-sacrifice so much to the point that you're not taking care of yourself. But not only that, what we're talking about here, what you're talking about in terms of how we want to reach our own personal potential, this is what we want for our patients too.
Yeah.
This is actually also so for this group, I mean, there's two sides to this coin. This is not only what we need to be doing for ourselves to meet our potential, but also if we're not doing it for ourselves, how are we possibly expecting our own patients to do it as well, which is the goal of the IV hydration clinics and the primary care clinics and the different things that we do in this group. So I just kind of want to point that out because I think this is a unique opportunity for this group, because this group is unique in the sense that it's both, right? This is what we need to want for ourselves and for our patients. And we're really probably not going to accomplish either if we don't attack it from this standpoint that you're coming from. So anyway.
It's a great point, Chris. And this is why I led with that story, is because the lady who ran that med spot, she just wanted the best for her clients, and she gave and she gave and she gave, but she never looked after herself. She never created what I call a life by design, and it ultimately cost her life at the end of the day. And think about all the impact, all the potential, all the influence that was left on the table from a 54-year-old woman who had another 25, 30 years of life left on average. And so that's what I want us to start to understand here, is that this is not only something that our clients should be striving for. And yes, we have a way in which we can start to implement this into your practice and into your, almost like a white labeled product for your service. But ultimately for you, like, what does this look like for you in your play, in your life, and redefining this so that you can get more whole, you can get healthy, and then be able to retroactively put that into your practice as well. And so what I realized through all of this is that health actually precedes performance. Health is actually what allows you to be consistent in all of these other areas of your life, and that you don't rise to the level of your goals, but rather you fall to the level of your systems. And when you fall to the level of your systems, that ultimately creates the inevitable outcome. I want to ask a question. And again, everyone throw this into your chat. But Shanika, Holly, Karen, Constance, guest 270, let me know what in the world means the most to you. What in the world means the most to you? Family, 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 health, family, God. Philip, I take your family from you. Karen, I take your family from you. Claudia, I take your health from you. Anissa, I take your time freedom from you. What do you give to get it back? Anything. Anything. Everything. I hear 4 answers when I do this, and I've asked over 15,000 people this question. Family, faith, health, and sometimes people split family into spouse and kids. And then when I ask the second question, it's anything and everything. So if you already have everything, if you already have your health, you already have your family, you already have your faith, you already have your time freedom, and you'd be willing to give everything if it was ever taken away, why in the heck do we not manage it better? Why do we not place a greater emphasis and priority on it? And that's what I want us to realize here, is there needs to be a perspective shift of how do we show up and how do we create a system, a process that allows us to lean in a more powerful way. And so my question to you is, what is it that you need in order to protect your health, in order to protect your mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress? What do you need in order to improve? And again, throw it in the chat. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are, because this whole concept here is going to create perspective shifts. Balance. Great, Tanya. What else? Money. Support. I'm going to argue against that. Make time for myself. Great. Work-life balance. Great. Knowledge. Great. And so when we lean into this, these are all awesome, but at the end of the day, a massage. At the end of the day, it's about creating a system. That's what we need. When you create a system and a process, the outcome is inevitable that you are going to have a greater capacity to have a greater influence and ultimately live up to the potential that exists. The best and most powerful business people, the best and most powerful athletes, the best and most powerful just regular everyday people have figured out their rhythm. We have to overreach. We have to live in this upper left quadrant if we want to grow. You have to be exposed to stress if you want to have growth in any way, shape, or form. But the thing is, you can't be constantly exposed to stress, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. You have to spend time in this bottom right quadrant, the regeneration quadrant, so that you can get the benefits of what stressing actually looked like. You talk about going in the sauna or the cold plunge. Why do you do that? You go and you expose yourself to stress purposefully, but then you allow yourself to recover after so that you can be more energetic, you can be more confident, you can be more fulfilled, you can be in a flow state. And you're operating and performing in this ownership quadrant. But what happens is we only live in this overreaching quadrant and ends up driving us into this burnout space. And this is where 90% of us live. We live in this space constantly. We go through cycles where we feel good and then we're exhausted. We feel good and then we're exhausted. We feel good and then we're exhausted. Because we haven't established a rhythm. We haven't set boundaries. We haven't hold steadfast and created a life by design. We've lived in a life by default. And we're going to get into what that looks like in a second. But I give this graphic all the time when I'm looking at this. So remember, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress, our body doesn't know the difference. On both the left graphic and the right graphic, the water is coming out at the exact same rate. Maybe your kids are going to college. Maybe you're running a business. Maybe you're having issues with your kids or your spouse at home. Maybe you're trying to get fit and lose weight. All of these things are stressors on your body. You can't shut the tap off. But what you can do is you can focus on poking holes in that cup. And what does that look like for you? They're the things that we're going to talk about today. And there's 8 different aspects, 8 foundational principles that we're going to lean into as to what does this life by design look like so that we can have a greater capacity to turn the taps on more and handle more stress and engage more stress and show up in a better way to perform. So I want to take you through this 3 signs of default. What are the 3 signs of a life in default? Number 1 is that our bodies do not know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress. And the uniqueness was there was actually this study put out, and if everybody wants to take this assessment, I want you to just scan the QR code here. If you've got a phone, scan this QR code. What this will do is this will allow people to get a number. If you don't have a phone to scan the QR code, go back to this and try, if you can read this. What Holmes and Rahi did was they took about 250,000 people and they had them go through these 43 questions. And these 42 questions were all focused in the area of mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress. So some things in there are mentally stressful. Some are physically stressful. Some are emotionally stressful. Some are spiritually stressful. Some are real stressors. Some are perceived stressors. Some are positive stressors. Some are negative stressors. And as you went through this, and again, when you start filling this out, it's just yes or no questions, and you're going to get a total at the very end. So please, if you scan this, just continue on through this. But what ends up happening is you look at this, and some of the things on the assessment here are things like, did you get married in the last year? Did you get divorced in the last year? Did you have a death of a spouse in the last year? Did you go on vacation? Did you celebrate a major holiday? Did you spend more time with extended family? Did you have a graduation in the family? Did you move? Did you do renovations? Did you get a new car? Did you get a new job? Have you started a new business? Is your business scaling or growing exponentially? Is your business failing exponentially? All of these questions that start to help us understand what life stress exists. Now, if you haven't taken the assessment, I encourage you to. If you have, throw your number in the chat, please. The average that I've seen, and I've done this again with over 15,000 people, the average I've seen is 296. I just took this morning. I always do it before to kind of give my number. I'm at 237. What Holmes and Rahi found, within a 2% accuracy point, they were able to start predicting the health degradation of people. And what they found was if you had 150 points or less, you had a relatively low amount of life change and a low susceptibility to stress-induced health breakdown. If you scored 150 to 300 points, you had a 50% chance of health breakdown in the next 2 years. And you've scored 300 plus, you had an 80% chance of health breakdown in the next 2 years, mentally, physically, spiritually, or emotionally. What that means is you could start gaining weight. What that means is you could have a mental breakdown. What that means is you could start suffering from sleeplessness. What that means is you could start suffering from lack of fulfillment. You could start suffering from anxiety. All of these things are health breakdowns, signs and symptoms that we start to ignore, that we call normal, which leads us into sign 2, which is that you're living in the fake health continuum. And what the fake health continuum is this area that thinks we're doing everything great, but we're actually just as dirty as this car. This picture right here is my neighbor's vehicle. This guy on Sunday, he is out with like toothpicks and Q-tips, cleaning out every nook and cranny of his car. His sister came down and borrowed it and had two children. Well, I came over to go and see how everything was doing because he was out of town, and I opened up the back door and I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? I had to take a picture because it immediately made me think, how many of us think that we're operating really well, but yet this is what the inside of our vehicle looks like. This is what the inside of our body looks like. This is what the inside of our mind looks like. And we haven't made sure that we've managed it appropriately. And so when we think about the fake health continuum, on the far right side, we've got death and disease. Death and disease means we've got our chronic illness. We've got diabetes. We've had a stroke. We've had a heart attack. We're getting treated for something. On the far right side, it means we're in the space of true health. True health, and it looks something like this. You might wake up in the morning full of energy, get to the gym, go and do what you need to do, get your kids off to school, go to work, get all your to-do list done over the course of the week. All of a sudden, you come home at night, you get your kids to soccer, you go, you do your social engagement, you connect with your spouse, you put your head on your pillow, you sleep deeply at night, and you're ready to go. But 90% of us live in this area called fake health. Get this, write this down. Disease-free, but symptom-full. Lack of energy, brain fog, headaches, overwhelm, anxiety, bloating, gut issues, irritability, confusion, body aches, all these things that the world tells us are normal. Oh, that's what normal looks like. That's what being an entrepreneur looks like. That's what being a mom or a dad looks like. All of these things that the world tells us are normal, but are actually symptoms of a dysfunctional process. And now some of these numbers are coming in. Karen, 379. Shanika, 557. Tanya, 534. All, if we look at this, in this area, they would say, hey, 80% chance of health breakdown in the next 2 years. So it's an alert saying, hey, we're living a life by default. This is super apparent. I mean, I think a lot of people in this group who are clinicians, if you're a nurse, if you're diving, like I'm an emergency physician. I mean, I can't tell you how many patients when I was working shifts in the ER every day that, to your point, would come in with symptoms. And after a battery of tests, I would say, hey, we're not finding anything wrong today. And they'd be like, what do you mean? I feel horrible. And I'd be like, hey, listen, like I understand that. Like all I'm saying is that like when we do our medical tests, we can't find anything definitive to treat in this way. I mean, 90% of the patients probably, if I'm being honest. Yep. Right? I mean, how very rarely, Shanika's saying like, yeah, every day. I mean, this is, and again, I was going to say earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt because you're on a roll, but this assessment that you guys just did, an amazing assessment for your patients as well. We talk about how sometimes like in the business of healthcare, it's, you feel bad. You don't want to sell people on your services. You don't have to sell people on your services. Educate them to where they're at in their own health. Have them take a survey. I mean, you guys are looking at this going 557, 534, 599, 242 and going, oh man, like we as healthcare professionals, your patients are going to be in the same boat. You don't have to sell them anything. If you're trying to provide that health and wellness and can just educate them to their need for it through assessments like this, it's invaluable. And that's the big thing is like now all of a sudden you go, oh man, now I'm in this area of fake health. I've got 2 or 3 symptoms that I know I've been normalizing. I've got this space to, and again, Constance, like I'm even going to argue an anti-stress drip is just masking the problem. And we're going to get into why that is in a second, because at the end of the day, what's performance? Performance is consistent and intentional behaviors on a day-to-day basis. We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems, and our outcomes What are our outcomes? Our outcomes are simply a lagging effect of our habits. That's it. Our outcomes, if you're suffering from any of these symptoms, headache, brain fog, chronic stomach aches, weight gain, irritability, brain fog, can't sleep. Brain fog is meaning that you're forgetting things on a regular basis. You get up, go to the kitchen, you forgot why you went in there. All of a sudden, somebody says something to you. You go to write it down. You're like, man, what did they say again? You can't think clearly. All of these are symptoms of the habits and behaviors in which you're executing on a day-to-day basis. Now let's go through the process. Chronic stress, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. Our body doesn't know the difference. This chronic stress leads to chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation leads to chronic symptoms. Chronic symptoms that we say are normal, that we're justifying, that we're living with, that we're just okay. But those chronic symptoms are leading to chronic illness. And chronic illness is the leading cause of death in the United States at 71%. That 71% is for the average person. It actually jumps to 83% when we talk about entrepreneurs, business owners, and executives. When we lean into that and we look at the definition of chronic illness being diabetes, heart disease, strokes, cancers, what we actually end up seeing is that 94%, please hear me on this, 94% of chronic illnesses are preventable by lifestyle, habit, and behavior change. And that's where I want you to start to realize this. The habits that you're engaging in are creating outcomes that are inevitable. When you start to take a look at your numbers that are up in the higher area, when you're looking at the symptoms you're engaging in, you are 2 out of 2 for a sign of a life by default. Sign number 3, where are you living? What does this look like? Are you living in Sacrifice Town, where you're sacrificing a good quality meal because you have to open up the clinic, or you have to go and take a meeting, or you have to go send more emails? Are you giving up a good night's sleep because you're worrying about the business? You've got to do something for your business. You've got to get those last emails out. You've got to solve that last problem. Are you sacrificing time with your friends, your family, or your kids' events because you have to, again, go to a client meeting? You have to go to a business meeting. You have to go and get something closed up at the shop. Or are you living in Averageville? And again, put it in the chat. I'm curious to see where people feel like they're living. Averageville, where your business is thriving, maybe your family is thriving, you feel like you're doing really well, but when you look at your health, you're just like every other average American who's actually going to have a 25% less health expectancy and age expectancy than every other developed nation in the world. And here's the big scary part is we are on the trajectory for the 4th year in a row, the first time in human history that the American average lifespan for both males and females will drop for a 4th year in a row. First time in human history that that's ever happened. And so that's the big thing that we're looking at. That's the big thing that we're standing on. We have to create a change, and we have to take ownership of that. Or are we living in Abundance Island, right? Where there's more than enough time, more than enough energy, more than enough resources, and more than enough people to make sure that we can get everything done and thrive in our habits, thrive in our relationships, thrive in our health, thrive in our business. And that life exists, but it takes intentionality and consistency and a life by design to do that. And so that's where we come into that solution. That's when we talk about what this solution looks like. And there's 4 non-negotiables. And we talk about running our business just like we do our body. Catherine, if I was to say to you, hey, I've got the best idea. I want you to invest $100,000 in this marketing ploy, in this marketing game. And it's going to get so much traffic. It's going to be really, really good. What would you say? Well, what's the click rate? What's the return rate? What's our likelihood of success? What's our client retention rate? You'd be looking for the data. You would want the number. If you're running a med spa and you're like, hey, what's the health of our business? You probably have daily KPIs that you're looking at. What's our retention rate? How many people are coming through the door? What's our marketing values looking like? If you've got an IV drip station, well, how many drips are you putting out a week? What's the cost of goods? What are you selling it for? You've got data that you're running this off of, but yet we don't do that for our bodies. We don't do that for our individual selves, which at the end of the day are the one things that we can't replace. Constance, if someone took your business from you today, Tanya, if somebody took your business from you today, Aaron, if somebody took your business from you today and you still had your health, you could go build another one. But if I took your health from you, it would impact your business. But yeah, we don't think about it that way. It's no different than here. So many of us, like here's the unique thing. Not once, when I asked you guys at the very beginning, what's the most important thing to you? Not once out of the 15,000+ people that I've asked, have they ever said business or money. But if I was on this webinar today and we were here to give you the secret of how to get $10,000 extra per month into your business, we probably would have had double the amount of people on. Think about that for a second. And so this is what allows you to be different. Having worked with thousands of entrepreneurs, thousands of business owners, the moment they start focusing on this is when everything starts to change, because you have capacity to actually do what you want to do. You have mental clarity to do what you want to do. And so the 4 non-negotiables that I talk about in terms of understanding your body and how it operates: heart rate variability, blood glucose, VO2 max, and micronutrient needs. And we can get down to what this looks like in a second. But I always have this meme up here. I followed this guy on social media for years, so I figured I can't go wrong following him in real life. How many of you have followed people on social media for years, have been seeing the way they do things, and been like, oh, I want a cold plunge now. Oh, I want to journal now. Oh, I want to intermittent fast now. Oh, I want to get my IV drip. Oh, I'm going to red light. Oh, I'm going to sauna. Oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm going to do that. But yet in practicality, in real life, it doesn't work that way. We have to figure out how to play your game, how to run your game, how to build your life by design that's different, that's unique as unique as your body has been built. Because you've been built uniquely for a reason, and we need to establish a design that's equal to that. Because what we can't articulate, we can't steward. What we don't understand, we can't implement. And at the end of the day, it becomes so important to measure and manage. And so just by like a little show of hands, or maybe like a yes in the chat, how many people have ever heard of heart rate variability? Just kind of type in yes or no. Yes, some, yes, awesome. Perfect. So I did my PhD in heart rate variability back in 2006. And as I was going through this whole process and really learning what does it mean to be able to manage stress, the best definition I came up for heart rate variability is how is our body adapting to stress and strain, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And it becomes your daily KPI for health resilience. And what we're looking at is the variation in timing of that heartbeat in between. So when we have something that is less stressful, when we're adapting to stress really, really well, when our habits, behaviors are aligned in a rhythm and we've got that rhythm tied in and really articulating well, we're going to have a positive trend in heart rate variability. It's going to be going upwards. If we're not adapting well and we're overreaching for an extended period of time, we're going to start to see a downward trend in heart rate variability. And so it gives us this notion, this understanding, this indication of what do I need to create some change in. And so you can find it in all of these different areas. You can find it in Whoop, you can find it in Oura, you can find it in Fitbit, you can find it in Apple. If you actually go to healthabundancescore.com, we'll give you a free wearable there where you can actually start tracking it, either Whoop or Oura, your choice. But the thing that I want you to understand is if you're 40 years old and you don't have an HRV of 45 to 75, your body's communicating something to you. You're not adapting well to stress or strain. If you're 50 years old and you don't have an HRV of 30 to 60, your body's communicating something to you. If you're 35 years old and you don't have an HRV of 50 to 75 or 80, your body's communicating something to you. It's time to make a change. It's time to adjust. So if you have a high stress score, according to the Stress Holmes Rahi life stress assessment early on that we did, if you have symptoms that you've been ignoring, that you've been justifying, if you're living in any one of these areas of other than Abundance Island, and if you have an HRV score that's below that norm, man, you're 4 out of 4, you're 3 out of 4, you're 2 out of 4. Your body's communicating something to you, and it's time to make an answer. It's time to step up. The next thing we can look at is blood glucose. Why do we want to know blood glucose? Because this is our body's language of how it's adapting to the food and liquids that you're putting into your body. It, again, becomes a daily KPI to bring awareness to the stress that your body's having to adapt to by ultimately bringing stability back to that blood glucose level. It's not only your diabetes or your diabetics that need to manage this. It's the everyday person. Because if we are having high peaks and low valleys, that's a direct indication of why you don't have the energy, why you can't sleep well, why you can't lose the weight, all of these things. And so by allowing us to have a metric or something that looks at this is going to have a key understanding. Your heart rate variability is going to be the indicator that takes everything we're going to talk about into consideration. You start to get a more steady blood glucose, you're going to see a rise in HRV. You start to see a rise in VO2 max, you're going to see a rise in HRV. You start to see a rise in proper nutrition and a drop in your total micronutrient deficiencies, you're going to see a rise in HRV. That's why HRV is like the basic. If you are not doing heart rate variability tracking on a day-to-day basis, and I'm not talking about looking at the algorithm, the readiness score, the preparation score, the recovery score, get rid of those. Those are algorithms that these technology companies have made their IP, that they're worth something. Get into the raw data and the raw metrics. Your VO2 max, how is your body adapting to oxygen efficiency? This is something that we would do bi-monthly or quarterly. Being able to see what is our biological versus chronological age and what is our oxygen efficiency level. If we have a higher number, it means we have a greater efficiency to use oxygen. Literally, the definition of death is when the body no longer has the oxygen in the brain, heart, or lungs in order to function. And so the greater oxygen efficiency we have, the less stress there is on our body. Thus, increase in heart rate variability, increase in efficiency, increase in capacity. The lower, the less efficient. And thus our body has to work harder to get oxygen to these areas to keep life sustained. Again, if we don't have a VO2 max in any of these areas, or we don't have an understanding, it's going to be something we want to step in with.
It's funny. Sorry to interrupt, Justin, but it was funny because my team and I just attended a conference. There's a biohacking conference, a big, a lot of functional medicine, IV hydration, that type of stuff there. And there was one booth where, now again, keep in mind that like a lot of clinicians are owners of these types of companies and these types of things, right? So there's a one booth where you could take an assessment and do this, test to figure out your biological age. And nobody wanted to do it. like the whole conference, there's a bunch of clinicians who they're focused in their whole job, their whole passion, what they're building and sacrificing for is to bring wellness to their patients and wellness to the people that they serve. And they were all terrified to do an assessment of their own biological age. You know what I mean? And I think it just, again, it lends to this group so much that, like, to your point, I mean, we measure these metrics in our businesses every day. Why aren't we measuring our own metrics in our own bodies? You know what I mean? It's just, again, for this group specifically, I think, I hope everybody's paying attention because this is huge.
100%. And the thing is the longer you keep your head in the sand, it doesn't mean it's not happening. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. I need you guys to, like, this is another concept that we're going to talk about here that might not hit you until 2 or 3 days from now, but let it sink in. Wednesday, October 18th at 2:40 p.m., 2025 is coming. It will be here inevitably. 2 years from today, it will be here. You can either be on this same call 2 years from now, having taken a bunch of action, having implemented a lot of things, and seen an outcome that was inevitable, or you could keep your head in the sand, keep doing the same things, and we could be talking about it again in 2 years, saying, man, I need to do something like this. Man, I'm struggling. Man, I'm irritated. Ignorance is simply being okay suffering for no reason. That's all it is. And so the more that we know, the more that we can understand, the more we can implement, the faster we can get ourselves out of suffering, the faster we can get ourselves out of the pain that we're in and get ourselves into a different situation. And so micronutrient deficiency is simply language. It's how our body is absorbing the raw material in our body. And again, I don't need to get into it here quite as deep, but there's a difference between blood serum testing and cellular testing. Cellular testing allows us to know what's in the cell, what's available to the body, where cellular or serum testing just lets us know about organ function. This is great for identifying how we treat things. This is great for understanding how we prevent things. And so when we look at micronutrient deficiency, and with our team, we'll actually do your micronutrient testing. We'll actually custom formulate a supplement that's built for you. We retool it and recreate it every quarter based upon the needs and what's actually happening and shaping within your body. But a higher number indicates that there's an absorption issue, meaning there's less efficiency to use nutrients, means that your body is starving of these things. A lower is optimal, meaning there's a greater efficiency to use these nutrients. And so again, I go back to this, these 4 areas: heart rate variability, blood glucose, VO2 max, and micronutrient deficiency. Heart rate variability is the number one thing that we should lean into. And everything else starts to impact that, because what is measured gets managed. What gets managed improves, or what gets tracked improves. It's all about making sure we can empower ourselves to learn and understand what's going on. And so as we've built this system, as we've built this framework around this, there's 4 pillars that we talk about when we talk about ownership: build, fuel, repair, and renew. And in each one of these pillars, we have 2 foundational principles: training and movement and mindset in build, nutrition and hydration in fuel, self-care environment in renew, sleep and immune response in repair. And each one of these has different habits that are attached to it. And I won't go deep into all of these, but this is a simple framework that if we're not engaging in some of these baseline habits, there's something that we're missing out on. If you take a look at your training and movement, if you're not getting 10,000 steps a day, a simple habit. If you're not using 30 minutes of intentional exercise a day, that's not texting and emailing that while you're riding a bike. That's not having a conversation at the gym. That's 30 minutes of intentional exercise a day. Is that moving every 90 minutes? Or are you locked to your desk and locked to your chair throughout the entire day? For your mindset, are you giving yourself a 15-minute breath work per day, 15-minute journaling per day, 15-minute deep reading, educational reading? Are you connecting with a spiritual mentor, or a mentor that's helping you grow and challenge you in different ways once a week? These are the habits that we have to start building our life around. Fuel. Are we stopping eating 3 hours before bed? Are we starting eating 3 hours after we wake up, giving ourselves a circadian eating window? Are we having 3 meals a day? Are we having 2 pieces of fruit with a protein source a day? Are we having 1 salad with a protein source a day? Are we focused on our portion sizing, meaning every single protein, carb, and fat is 1 at every meal? Like, what does that look like? Then we get into hydration, half our body weight in ounces. Are we getting that a day? Are we using an electrolyte such as Element, Redmond, or Protect that just has, or even your IV drip? Are you doing that once a quarter or once a month or once every couple of weeks? That's going to have your potassium, magnesium, and sodium to help with cellular absorption. Self-care. Are you giving yourself 30 minutes of self-care per day? Giving yourself this mindset break, giving yourself a walk, giving yourself a space just to refuel yourself. You have an environment that you're looking at. Are you seeing the sun daily? Are you getting access to that? Are you being able to have a night routine that's optimal? Are you being able to make sure that your sleeping environment is adequate? What's your working environment like? What's your home environment like? Are you making sure that you're giving yourself this opportunity? We then flip over to repair. Sleep. Do you have a wind down routine? A simple 3-2-1 rule. No work 3 hours, or pardon me, no meals 3 hours before bed. No work 2 hours before bed. No blue light 1 hour before bed. Do you have a nice wind down routine? Do you get into, do you have a dark environment in your bedroom? All of these things that we can start to think about. Immune response. Do we get 100 minutes of heat exposure, sauna, steam room, hot tub per week? Do we get 11 minutes of cold immersion? Is it cold shower? Is it a cold plunge? Is it just standing outside in Detroit, Michigan? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, we're really good at that one. That one, I can do that one. I'm gonna write that one down. Yeah, I got that one.
Like, how do we build our life around these? And then how do we start to pare down and start to do some of these testings and get a little bit more refined and build some of these frameworks and practices in? Because it's cool to look at these, but it's a whole nother thing to say, oh no, I've actually implemented it in my life. I've actually built my life around these components. I've created an accountability tool. I've created an accountability system. I've created responsibility and time and a gap where I can continue to look back and see what's working and what's not. I want to give you this success story because every single person on here is what Elizabeth was all about. For us, Our big mission at Own It is to help business owners manage their own health while also empowering others. And the reason that I love people on this call is a lot of you have med spas, a lot of you have wellness solutions, a lot of you have these other things. So not only is there a business play here, yes, you can make an extra $10,000 by bringing us in and being an affiliate partner with us and making sure that we can have our entire system access to your clients that only empower the results that they're getting. But a bigger play is for you. A bigger play is for you, the business owner, to be able to make sure that what's happening in your life doesn't have to be the end of this, doesn't have to be the end result. And so when Elizabeth came to us, it was literally right after a hyperbarics conference that I presented at. She came up to me. She goes, Justin, I want to serve people, but I'm burnt out. Like I'm struggling like with my own health, my own energy. She was replacing members of her team regularly because they were struggling on bringing people in and retaining clients. They had the best hyperbarics. They had the best red lights. They had the sauna. They had the cold plunge. They had the IV drips. They did the ozone. They had everything. They had all of these tools, but they weren't getting people in and they weren't retaining them. They had chronic low anxiety. She had chronic anxiety. She had low energy. She had gained 50 pounds in 2 years. It felt like she was an absent mother and wife. She was struggling to sleep. She had brain fog. She wasn't able to focus and lead her team appropriately. Well, all of a sudden we put her into our program. She went through, she had a team working with her. In 3 months, she had completely transformed how she was operating. During that same time, we figured out how to build this into her platform. And she not only was able to now be more energetic, more clear, more mentally on point in her business, but her business more than 10x'd over the course of those same 3 months because she had now a platform that worked and a way to bring people in and a way to retain them and a system that she didn't have to think about. And so it served her in such a powerful way individually. And she's no different than the other 100 business owners in this space of med spa and health practitioners that we've helped in that same component. Because at the end of the day, taking ownership is the intersection point of responsibility and accountability. It's knowing that you have to do this, knowing that this is something you owe not only to yourself, but to your family, to your kids, to your spouse, to the people that you're serving, to the team that you have. But then pairing it with accountability. It's not something you say, hey, I did this really cool thing. I was on this webinar that woke me up, that really alerted me to this. But what am I doing to establish an accountability team around me so I can make sure that happens? Because when we think about a life by design, it can sometimes be overwhelming. You can look at all of those habits there and all of those pillars and all those foundational principles and be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. But we have to prepare ourselves into something in which is already prepared for us. One, we have to create purposeful priorities. Where do our priorities lie? Maybe for you, it falls under build. Maybe it's training and movement. That's your biggest priority that you need to focus on right now. Or maybe as I went through this, sleep is the number one priority that you have to start to establish something and really where your focus needs to be. Great. Well, if that's the case, what are you going to replace? I don't want you to start adding all these things. Philip asked, how do you shift these habits for someone who shifts between night and day shift? Well, we're going to start to replace things. We're going to look at what habits you've actually started with that may not be serving you to where you want to go, maybe getting you an outcome that actually isn't aligned with what you want. So what are we going to replace in our life? Then expend. You're going to have to expend time, expend energy, expend resources. You're going to have to expend one or a combination of the three. P, persistent practice. You're not going to get this overnight. It's going to be something that you do over and over and over again. I hit on the word consistency and intentionality is what's required in order to generate performance. A, accept accountability. Who is your accountability team? Is it a person? Is it a place? Is it people? Is it a community? What does that accountability look like? Knowing that not adhering to it 1 day out of a week, 1 week out of a month is not an indication of who you are, but rather just where you are. Doesn't indicate your worth, doesn't indicate any of these other things, but realizing we have to shift in what we're doing. Our rest, reassess, and refine, making sure that we're coming back and saying, what is working for me? What isn't? Where can I double, triple down? What can I continue to change? And E is expect. Expect the outcome. If you want more energy, if you want to bring that number down from that life stress category, if you want to ultimately show up more energetically and more mentally clear, more powerful, expect the outcome, because it's going to allow you to be more sustained, more consistent in your preparation. And so even going back to Philip's question is, how do you shift these habits for someone who shifts between night shift and day shift? You just have to create two different systems. One system for when you're on night shift, one system for when you're on day shift. And that becomes your framework. What often happens is we don't create a plan that we allow ourselves to execute on. And we don't have a plan to execute on. We're constantly trying to make decisions, and decision fatigue is real, especially for business owners, especially for people who are leading in different organizations and different teams. You're asked to make 500 different decisions a day. The last thing you want to make a decision on is what you have to eat at night. The last thing you want to make a decision on is when you should go to bed. The last thing you should make a decision on is what you should do for self-care. The last thing you should make a decision on is what workout you should be doing at what time you're doing it at. If you practice and you put it into play and actually schedule it and put it on, it no longer becomes a decision. It just becomes an execution. You literally just start acting. And that's what makes it sustainable and long-term. I say this to all clients that we work with and a lot of different webinars I'm on. Show me your calendar and I'll tell you your priorities. I guarantee you, I looked at every single one of your calendars right now. I would assume that none of you have your workout on there. I would assume that none of you have date night on there. I would assume that none of you have connection time with your kids on there. I would assume none of you have self-care time on there. I would assume none of you have maybe church time on there. But you'd be darned if you didn't have every business meeting on there. You'd be darned if you didn't have every travel for business on there. You'd be darned if you didn't have everything that was business related on there. And so it creates a new structure. We have to create a system. Remember, we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. How do we develop this system? And that's what we help people do. And so I'd love to, like I said, I've got this up here. I usually don't open up much of my calendar. I usually put people through to our sales team. We've got a team of 57 now over the last 3 years in where we're working and how we're working. But for Chris and the team, I wanted to really open up my calendar to you guys, whether it's something that I can help you with for your clinic, for your practice, or for you as an individual, and kind of chat with you through that. Just simply scan that, book a call, and we can get a little bit deeper and dive in with you as to what this looks like and how we can transform this for you. So, Chris, I'll turn it over to you. I'd love to take questions if there's questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, please we got a couple minutes here. So, I mean, first of all, Justin, thank you so much. I mean, I'll be booking a call with you. So, no, my wife and I have been are going to get into one of the things that Justin also does is a couples collective, where as a couple we can come together and really, deep dive into a lot of the stuff he talked about today, which we'll be doing in the near future for sure. But I mean, again, I can't reiterate enough how important this stuff is, guys, for not just yourselves as clinicians, but for your patients, for your bit. I mean, this is just such an all-encompassing thing. And we all know this, right? We really do. We all know how important this is. It's whether or not you're going to step up and actually take the initiative. If you want to, we've helped over 1,000 clinics start here at Guardian. And I'll tell you right now, you want to know why people aren't booking consultations with your IV therapy clinic it's because of this. And I hate to say that, you hate to call people out in that way, but it's very, very true. I mean, as a physician myself, you know how impossible it is for me to talk to someone about their health, wellness, and diet if I'm not doing it myself?
Yeah.
You know how impossible it is to talk about, relieving stress for people who have anxiety when it's stuff that I struggle with too. I mean, it really does become impossible. I mean, this not only will drive, and you should do this for your health, you should do this for your family, but do this for your business as well. Do this for your patients. I mean, this really touches on every single one of those. So we'll jump into some of these questions real quick here. Is there a link to the stress test that we did?
Yeah, I just put it in there. Just put it into the chat. So right there, that'll drive you to that area right there. So you guys can take that and have that.
Awesome. And Claudia, yes, this is going to be recorded. So we're recording this webinar. It's also on Facebook Live. I'll be sending it out to everybody who registered for the event today, so you have a recording of it. Absolutely, we'll get that out to you guys in the next day or two here. Obviously, said a lot of people. Justin is just expressing their thanks again. I think, this is so needed. just everywhere in general, but I would almost say even more particularly in the healthcare space. I mean, for those of us who want to make the same kind of difference that you're making out there, we've got to start focused on we're not going to change healthcare until we focus on these things like that. And I think all of us here have a dream and a passion and a vision for doing things differently for our, for the healthcare system as a whole and for our patients. And again, I think this is absolutely where it starts. So
100%.
awesome.
And even I see a couple people in there like Holly talking about sharing it with their ops team. The other thing that we can come in and do, and I really encourage people just to book a call if this was interesting for them, if we come in and actually do just a workshop with your entire team. What does this look like to be able to bolster you guys up? We've done probably over 200 of them now over the last couple of years with different wellness facilities, different businesses, different corporations, where you just literally come in and empower you with the information about what does this mean? How do you create a transformational system? We'll actually dive in. So even going back to, I think it was Philip's question of how do I build this out for myself? That's what we do over the course of our workshop is we make sure that it's done, built for you. So you're leaving with something actionable. You're leaving with an accountability plan. You're leaving with something that matters, something that's purposeful, giving you information and feedback and data that you can now drive and run your business or run your body just like you do your business and have that life of design with intentionality and consistency.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Justin. Again, I think just thinking about during this thing, I mean, you'll be doing it for Guardian soon. I mean, you think about, everybody here can see it. Everybody can hear it. I mean, could you imagine if everyone on your team, I mean, go back to Holly's thing. I'm going to share this with my ops team. Could you imagine if everyone on your sales team, on your marketing team, on your clinical team was doing this, whether you're going to do it for yourself or not, right? You should. And that sometimes like affecting us ourselves is the hardest thing, right? But just picture a world where your entire team was doing all of these things.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine how efficient and how high performing your business would skyrocket? Like, I think it was Elizabeth in your example here, like hers did. So, I mean, again, it's just expected at that point, right? Put these things in and expect the outcome, or don't do it and expect the outcome from that too, right? We'll see you in 2 years when we do it again, type of thing. So, no, I mean, I think this is absolutely incredible. And Justin, we appreciate your time so much. Obviously, Justin's email address, I think, or like his links and stuff are on here, his LinkedIn. So reach out to him, scan this QR code if you want to reach out to him. We will send this recording out to everybody. But again, wow, Justin, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you guys. And just as you talked about there, Chris, it was something we often say at the end is a better me plus a better you equals an elevated we. And Absolutely. It's not about focusing on the we all the time. It's about how can we focus on me and what I need so that we can ultimately lean in. And so, Holly, just like you said, you've been struggling with this in a couple different areas. And we can be here 2 years from now talking about the exact same thing, or you can take one action. You can take one step, one action into thanking that a future you will thank you for taking that step. And so, now it's in your guys' hands.
Awesome. No,
we do this day in and day out. We know the process. We know the systems. We know those. We know the principles. We live it. I just want to bring other people along with me, and you guys have to make the next move.
Love it. Awesome. Well, again, Justin, thank you so much. Appreciate everybody who attended. Again, we'll send this recording out, and we will see you next time on our next webinar. Thanks, guys.